Be Me 34 senior art lead at a branding studio. Near the river office felt less like office and more like a repair shop for broken identities. Monitors, glowing late. Coffee burned, constantly deadlines, sitting in every conversation like loaded weapons. Nobody there performed enthusiasm because the work already demanded enough theater if a layout was weak. Somebody said it fast, and specifically, nobody called that cruelty because everyone understood. The point was improvement our little corner ran on ruthless clarity, mutual respect, and espresso strong enough to dissolve memory. Unofficial captain of that corner was Victor, oldest designer in the studio. No management title, everyone still waited for his opinion. Victor could scan a homepage for 10 seconds and tell you exactly why. It was dying, tracking suffocating contrast, dead hierarchy, collapsed. Fix the headline first. That was him in perfect form, blunt, calm, and almost always right. Nobody feared his feedback because he used the same knife on his own work. First, he shredded his own drafts faster than ours. Under him, we got fast practical, weirdly proud of being severe. We weren't artists chasing validation. We were mechanics, rebuilding broken visual systems. Clients arrived with impossible fantasies, and we translated them into something that could survive reality. Usually our managing director understood that and backed Victor whenever nonsense needed killing early. Then the company hired Celeste Warren from corporate culture at some hotel chain. First changes were tiny scented diffusers near reception, framed slogans where awards used to hang pale cushions, mindfulness flyers, a playlist nobody had requested by Friday. Our concrete little workshop smelled like lavender and supervised breathing. Celeste moved softly, smiled often, and never once asked a direct question. She invited reflection, encouraged alignment, offered support around emerging interpersonal patterns. She could describe a printer needing toner, like it was a childhood trauma sent first company email about mindful language and collaborative environments. Nobody on our row read past paragraph 2. Archived it, joked, once went back to deadlines for a week. She seemed harmless. Another decorative layer around the real work. Then a major client landed and suddenly she wasn't decorative anymore. Private Heritage Bank wanted a full rebrand. Wanted century-old trust and startup electricity in the same breath. Wanted calm, premium, rebellious, warm, minimal, and unforgettable. Wanted a logo that honored tradition while announcing radical youthful momentum, the sort of brief that should have triggered an emergency intervention. Immediately normally, Victor would have walked upstairs and forced a clarification meeting before anyone touched Illustrator. He did go upstairs, stayed longer than expected. Celeste was in the room too. When he came back, his face had this new empty look I didn't like at all. Told us leadership wanted openness, elasticity, and solutions. Honoring every stakeholder perspective in plain English, nobody was going to challenge the contradictory brief we were expected to make. Nonsense looked deliberate, room went silent. Still, we tried because professionals always try before they surrender. We built Mark's palettes type systems decks. Every rote collapsed because satisfying one demand violated 3 others. When we sent work upstairs, feedback came back softer, longer, and somehow less useful. Every time. Not wrong, not terrible, never decisive, just mush, pretending to be strategy. Please explore more confidence without losing, softness and preserve heritage through disruption. Sentence like, that should be prosecutable finally. Leadership scheduled review with our team, the director. And Celeste client had hated every route, patience was dying. Director started with his usual management, soup, shared accountability, creative opportunity, partnership, language. Then asked why the team seemed unable to unlock the client vision. Nobody answered immediately because the answer was wearing a blazer. Victor leaned forward and explained the problem with zero drama. Said the team wasn't blocked by talent or effort. We were blocked by contradictions that canceled each other, on contact. Broke down each one in adult language. A mark cannot signal old-world restraint and reckless disruption. Equally well, a color system cannot feel meditative and aggressively youthful at the same intensity. A serious banking brand cannot resemble a nightlife app. Without consequences, recommended going back to the client and forcing real choices. He wasn't rude, just direct. Then Celeste raised one hand and changed the department. Forever, said his framing felt combative, dismissive, and emotionally unsafe for collaborative ideation. Room froze, even Mara stopped taking notes. Celeste smiled while explaining that words like impossible shut down possibility, said Victor's certainty could silence quieter perspectives, and damaged trust director looked at the table like wood grain had suddenly become wisdom. Victor waited for him to defend process, reason, anything. Director said nothing. Then Celeste suggested we practice curiosity instead of oppositional expertise. Victor nodded, once sat back, went completely still. That stillness scared me more than if he had shouted back downstairs. Nobody needed a debrief. Reality had just been demoted below feelings and optics. Next morning, the whole department felt altered banter. Gone spontaneous. Critiques gone. Victor stopped pacing the row, and reviewing screens started commenting through the project system, in perfect dead corporate phrasing. Please consider a bolder treatment that further honors stakeholder complexity. Please explore warmer authority while preserving youthful restraint. Comments looked like satire, except nobody was joking anymore. We followed his lead because he was showing us the only safe move left, if honest expertise could be punished as violence. Literal obedience became self-defense, so we became beautifully obedient. They wanted calm, blue and electric urgency. In one signature we gave them sleepy powder, bleeding into ambulance red, looked like pharmacy branding for an energy drink. Submitted it with notes. Confirming all requested tensions were represented. They wanted timeless serif authority infused with startup unpredictability. Nico tilted random letters in an elegant old-style font until it looked like a drunk aristocrat, delivered it with commentary about balancing heritage and disruption. Our director wandered downstairs twice, looking physically ill, asked if we genuinely believed any of these directions. Served the project well, nobody volunteered. Opinions were now dangerous. Victor simply referenced the written brief and invited further client-aligned clarification. The man had trapped himself and knew it. Celeste interpreted our silence as healthy maturation, sent a cheerful note celebrating our transition toward less adversarial communication patterns. Reading it almost made me laugh, loud enough to get fired. She thought she had softened the room. Really, she had hollowed it out. Every rough, useful instinct had gone underground. While compliance took the wheel, project entered this grotesque loop. We produced literal responses to every contradictory note. Leadership forwarded them, because leadership no longer trusted or deserved. Better client hated each round more than the last. Understandable 1 week. We got new comments from 3 people on the client side that directly contradicted each other in the same document. We honored all of them. Design got uglier, stranger, more defensible. Nobody missed deadlines. Nobody rebelled. We simply stopped donating expertise to people who had made expertise unsafe. Then Celeste scheduled mandatory workshop on compassionate feedback for creative teams, conference room, flip chart, feelings, arrows, observations, needs, requests. Blame-free expression. Then she asked for volunteers to role-play critique. Nobody moved, nobody coughed, nobody rescued her. Not angry silence either. Angry would have given her something useful. This was vacuum. She smiled harder and invited Theo and Mara to demonstrate. They looked at her, then at each other, then nowhere. 40 minutes of her trying to animate a room that had decided not to breathe for her. She finally said, maybe we were not ready yet, and dismissed us early when I passed Victor's desk. He gave me one tiny nod. That nod said everything. A few days later, the final client presentation hit the calendar. Mood downstairs turned ceremonial, like funeral, with premium fonts. Our director made awkward friendliness rounds. Each morning brought pastries once. Nobody touched them. Celeste was glowing. I overheard her in the kitchen praising our department's emotional evolution, hearing that nearly made me aspirate. Bad coffee presentation day arrived under gray sky that made everything feel judicial. Bank delegation entered chairman, silver-haired and elegant. Their external brand advisor beside him, our director began. The deck first screen was the gradient logo with slanted aristocrat letters. Chairman stared a few seconds and asked what exactly he was looking at. Director recycled client brief language as if repetition created logic. Slide 2 made it worse. Chairman said it looked like airport currency exchange branding. The deck kept going every slide, a monument to contradictory instructions and managerial cowardice by the final one. Our director was sweating through his shirt. Chairman closed his notebook and called the work amateurish. incoherent. And insulting then demanded explanation from whoever actually led the creative direction. Our director did what cowards always do when consequence finally enters the room. Pointed at Victor, blamed breakdown in leadership and discipline. Celeste nodded sadly like she was about to validate a tragic male genius narrative. Victor stood first time he'd moved in. What felt like weeks looked only at the chairman and said one sentence. "You're correct, sir." This work is terrible on purpose. Nobody in that room breathed. He lifted a thin binder from beside his chair, explained he had challenged the brief weeks earlier as irreconcilable, recommended reset meeting so professionals could force actual choices. Instead had been formally reprimanded for harmful tone and oppositional language, then laid the memo on the table. Beneath it were email chains documenting every contradiction and every softened leadership response. He explained that the team then adapted exactly to the communication model, demanded of them no challenging assumptions, no negative language, no forceful professional judgment, just obedient execution of every written instruction. No matter how self-defeating gestured to the ruined deck, said this presentation was the purest possible expression of that policy in action. Said the failure was not artistic, it was administrative and cultural. Then sat down and folded his hands. Chairman read the memo, read the emails, director went. The color of chalk, Celeste's smile began failing at the corners. Finally, chairman addressed her directly, asked if she was from Human Resources. Yes, if she had participated in this intervention. Yes, she tried launching into collaboration and wellness language. He stopped her with one raised finger, asked whether she truly believed her discomfort with candid expertise outweighed his firm's commercial interests. Then he turned to our director and finished the execution. Said he had let someone with no design expertise overrule his design. Lead publicly accused him of protecting process theater because he lacked the courage to lead adults. Then the chairman stood, gathered the binder, and suspended the contract immediately pending legal review before leaving. He looked at Victor and said he should take his talent somewhere. Reality was still permitted after they left. Projector fans sounded louder than any human. Nobody moved for several seconds. Eventually, we were told to go back downstairs, while leadership assessed next steps. Company didn't fire. Celeste, of course, not. Just moved her upstairs into a made-up strategic ethics role. Official email praised her leadership during a challenging period of reflection. Reading that nearly made Theo walk into traffic. The bank did offer one narrow path back they would stay, only if Victor held full creative authority, with no internal interference, no director filter, no HR participation, no rewritten briefs. And we got a bonus to rebuild the identity. In 1 week we finished in 4 days, because reality, once restored, moves fast. System we delivered was restrained, expensive, sharp, and exactly what a heritage bank should look like. Technically, we saved the account emotionally. The department never recovered its pulse. People spoke more carefully now. Even when management wasn't present, a poison had entered the room, and everybody could still taste it. A few weeks later, Victor invited 4 of us for drinks after work. I assumed he wanted to celebrate. Instead, he said he was resigning. Monday morning, Theo asked why now, after proving management so publicly wrong. Victor said we hadn't fixed anything. We'd only earned a temporary exception. The system was still designed to reward cowards and punish candor next time another Celeste arrived. We'd do this again. Then he laid out the plan he'd been shaping quietly. Small independent studio, flat structure, direct feedback as policy, no culture bureaucracy, no giant clients promising opposite things. Enough margin to refuse nonsense. He couldn't match our current salaries. Immediately could promise ownership and dignity. Nobody at that table needed much time. Theo agreed. First, then Mara, then Nico, then me. We weren't following charisma. We were following the last adult in the building. 3 months later, I was sitting in our new studio above an old bike repair shop, rain tapping the windows. Nico and Mara arguing savagely over navigation, spacing, nobody whispering, nobody self-censoring, every rough sentence making the work better. On one monitor sat our first hospitality rebrand. Nearly ready to launch, on another sat a recruiting post from our old company, looking for resilient creatives in an inclusive, empowered, psychologically safe design family. Under it, someone had left a public review. The company couldn't delete truth, still not welcome here. Victor saw it, laughed once, and went back to fixing a homepage that was the whole ending. No speech, no toast, just reality, winning quietly.